Hello everybody and welcome to the Analytics month of Hamilton, where today we're going to be talking about the
Prodigy of Princeton College, Aaron Burr. Give us a verse, drop some knowledge.
Mr. Analytic, I recall you calling Burr the main character, sir.
And I seem to recall you not having a voice.
But Mr. Analytic, isn't a musical called Hamilton?
But Mr. Analytic, Burr can't be the main character. He's a murderer.
Alright, let's slow down. Burr can be the main character even if his name isn't in the title. Similarly, Link is the main character of Zelda despite his name not being in the title. Also, you don't have to be a good person to be the main character. Yes, we generally associate the main character with things like that are mentioned in the title, screen time, or heroic attitude, but these are all criteria that are frequently subverted. However, what defines the main character without fail is the learning of a lesson. All stories are, in some way, lessons, and the main character is the figure through which those lessons are learned. Through Belle, we learn not to judge a book by its cover. Through Carl, we learn to move on. And while it's hard to say Hamilton doesn't teach us anything by the end of the story, I find Burr's lesson far more interesting. And the best way to see what he learns is by looking at the show from his perspective. So, without further ado,
Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. I am the one thing in life I can control.
despite all the discussion about Hamilton, I find that no one really talks about how weird it is, as in structurally. Hamilton is filled with a lot of very meta characters who are almost aware of the fact that they're telling a historical play. Washington has a song called History Has Its Eyes on You, Hamilton drones on and on about legacy, and Eliza, well, we'll talk about her next week. However, of all the characters, Burr is the most self-aware. As the narrator, not only does he know that a story is being told, but that the story is being told in the present day. He does tell the audience,
They won't teach you this in your classes, but look it up. Hamilton was wearing his glasses.
However, despite his being the guy that shoots our hero, we don't really get to hear his thoughts until Wait For It, perhaps one of the musical's most acclaimed songs, giving us what is perhaps one of its most profound verses.
Death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It takes and it takes and it takes.
Realize, at this point in the show, all we know about Burr is that he shot Hamilton and doesn't really talk all that much. But in Wait For It, we find that he's a deeply philosophical and introspective character, and a lot more than the guy who pulled the trigger. It's also in this song that Burr explains how he feels about Hamilton, a sort of mix of wonder and jealousy, which is all more or less justified. Like Burr, Hamilton is an orphan, and, like Burr, he's intelligent and wants to make something of himself. But unlike Burr, Hamilton doesn't hesitate. He goes out and makes things happen, a trait that Burr lacks. This isn't the only instance where we see Burr's jealousy. Before Wait For It, we see him fall silent at Hamilton's arrival in Right Hand Man, and in Non-Stop, we see him get continuously frustrated with Hamilton's mannerisms. However, his jealousy almost seems senseless and misdirected. I mean, what could he possibly want? Well, it's not until the room where it happens, where after one act of narrating the ambitions and the achievements of others, he finally tells us what he wants.
I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens.
And it's only after he admits to his ambitions that we see him begin to pursue them.
But Mr. Analytic, what a slimeball! He does that by switching parties just to seize an opportunity. He was too ambitious for his own good.
Agreed.
Not really. I mean, think of Hamilton, a penniless orphan who made sure to marry a rich girl and avoided disobeying a direct order by having his friend do it. Burr is far humbler. Heck, even after he runs against Hamilton's father-in-law, he still considers Hamilton his friend. Heck, in the election of 1800, he even attributes his success to Hamilton.
Is there anything you wouldn't do?
No, I'm chasing what I want, and you know what?
What?
I learned that from you.
But even after that moment of heartwarming, Hamilton endorses Burr's enemy, keeps him from achieving his goals, and publicly insults him. Burr's reaction might not make him glamorous, but it makes him real, flawed, sympathetic, and in my opinion, one of the best characters in the musical. And it's only after all this that we get to see Burr do the thing he's famous for, shoot Hamilton, and even then he still shows remorse, even after he's explained his reasoning to the audience.
But Mr. Analytic, what's the lesson here?
Simple. As he says in The World Was Wide Enough,
History obliterates, and every picture it paints me and all my mistakes. When Alexander aimed at the sky, he may have been the first one to die, but I'm the one who paid for it. I survived, but I paid for it.
history doesn't care how you felt or why you did what you did. All that matters is that you did it. Because he acted too late and acted too violently, the prodigy and loving father goes down in history as a murderer. Hamilton at its core is about how your story gets told, and through Burr we learn that it's by speaking our mind and taking action, not by smiling more. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Analytic, and next week we're going to be talking about just who tells that story, with an analysis of Eliza Schuyler Hamilton. If you liked what you saw, do subscribe. I'll see you next week.